Today, I'll be discussing a topic that is of importance to what we do in development work and research. And I'll be discussing it because along the line, I've seen people who think what I am going to discuss or what I'm discussing is not important. And it's very instrumental in the kind of work we do if we are going to be successful in what we do. And it's important I discuss it because uh, I've seen a lot of interventions that disregarded indigenous knowledge. And the reason we disregard indigenous knowledge is because over time we have this erroneous assumption that the rural people or the rural farmers uh, are illiterate because they do not speak and write English. That's 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 a fatal uh, erroneous assumption. There is no illiterate anywhere. For the fact that they cannot speak English does not make them illiterate. You see, the arrogance of Western knowledge we take to communities or we take in rating people, it's not what it ought to be. The rural population have indigenous knowledge system and they have expertise in indigenous knowledge and they have lived and used this indigenous knowledge to interact with their environment for years, solve their problem. In short, some of them can read and write in local languages. Some of them have written research work, and some of them have written articles that contribute to knowledge using local language, which is not English. So for us to say that they do not have that to for us to say that they are illiterate and sideline them in project design or it's really an error that is negatively impacting project outcomes. So disregard for indigenous knowledge can significantly impact research and development intervention in several ways, in many ways. One of which is that when you disregard local indigenous knowledge, ignoring indigenous knowledge can lead to the introduction of external solutions that may not or that is not even suitable for the local context, resulting in failed intervention. So when you ignore indigenous knowledge, you are likely to bring or to voice external solution that is not suitable for local context, which will inevitably result in failed intervention. And this is what we see in climate change intervention projects. And this is what we see in health communication, particularly acceptance to vaccine in many rural communities. So this is what it is. Another thing is, when you disregard indigenous knowledge in project intervention or research, you are likely or you will miss out on valuable insights and innovative solutions that could enhance your research and the development outcome. So this is why, as you design your projects, as you design your research, you need to find a way to ensure adherence to indigenous knowledge system. So this is another one we could also be looking at, that disregard for indigenous knowledge can be perceived or as cultural insensitivity. And when that happens, automatically it leads to mistrust and resistance from the local communities. And when this happens, there's nothing you will tell them, they will listen to you. So you see why you must never disregard indigenous knowledge in project design and your research. So, aside from that, another reason is, when you ignore indigenous knowledge, your target population, the communities you are designing this project for, may not feel interested in your development initiative or even in the research, reducing their sense of ownership and accountability. Reducing their sense of ownership and accountability. So what this shows you clearly is that even from day one, you are failed. So we should stop this thinking that we sit in our offices and begin to design projects that, and the local people are not even called upon to make input or disregard the indigenous knowledge. So the challenge, therefore, is that relying solely on external expertise, Western expertise, in project design and research leads to inaccurate data as local context and nuances are being overlooked. And that is why I feel very uncomfortable when people sit in UK and US to tell you that they are Nigerian researchers or African experts. Now the question is, African expert in what? You do not have any well-known indigenous knowledge, and you're sitting so comfortable wherever you are, telling people that you're designing project or you're an expert over Africa issues, over communities you know nothing about. Come on, we should get better. So, disregarding indigenous knowledge in project design or even in project intervention or research can actually perpetuate power imbalance, where external experts dictate solutions rather than collaborate with local stakeholders. So when you do this, you're not likely to have results. This is what it is. And that is why I feel very uncomfortable when people sit in the comfort of their offices with hired consultants to design conflict resolution mechanisms for communities in Benue State, in Nasarawa State, in Kogi State, and probably in Niger State. Communities they've not been to, using Western model, using Western experience to design interventions for locals with total disregard for their indigenous knowledge. So at the end of the day, what we do is nothing but paperwork. That's all. From day one, the project is already designed to fail, and it will surely fail. And that's why I say, in as much as we think we rely on the arrogance of Western education, it is important to know that even indigenous knowledge holds significance, economic potential, such as traditional medicine. We should know. And sustainable agricultural practices, which may be overlooked if disregarded. And that's why I'm saying that as we begin to have conversation and begin to design climate change mitigation and intervention projects, we must recognize and allow indigenous knowledge and indigenous communication to play an active role, to find expression in the way these interventions are being implemented. That's what it is. So, because disregarding indigenous knowledge contribute to cultural erosion as local practices are replaced by external influence. So we need to understand there are so many communities. There are communities that when you go to the communities, the only thing that will make them listen to you is when you design projects that respects the cultural sensitivity of the people. Any project that doesn't respect the cultural sensitivity of the people is never welcomed. So as we design projects, intervention project, development intervention project, and research targeting rural population, we need to know, to have the understanding that indigenous knowledge, respect for indigenous knowledge is significant and instrumental to the success of whatever we do. And this is why some researchers suffer there on the field. This is why many development intervention projects suffer, because disregard for indigenous knowledge raises ethical issues, it raises ethical concerns. Communities may look at it as your project as mere exploitative. You're just there to exploit local resources and expertise without proper recognition, compensation, or credit. So, by recognizing or incorporating indigenous knowledge in our research and development interventions, clearly makes them more effective, sustainable, and equitable. So I'll summarize by saying that there are no illiterates anywhere. We should stop allowing Western education, the arrogance of Western education, to make us think that the rural population, the rural farmers are illiterate. They are not. They have indigenous knowledge. They have lived with over time to address their own problem. So when you listen to them, they will teach you. One old person, elderly person in the community, who can teach you what no professor would teach you anywhere in the world. Therefore, indigenous knowledge system is instrumental and fundamental in what we do. So today I decided to discuss this because I've seen how it impacts research and development intervention projects negatively. And we need to recognize it so that we'll be successful in what we do. Thank you.